This is a lesson, basically, for civilians to understand. If law enforcement has begun in any type of capacity, your opinion is irrelevant to the outcome. You can be pissed off all you want to. Back up.
She made an obvious attempt to trip him up, which was very inappropriate, which should have never been done. And then instantly she tried to turn herself into a victim.
Even justified intervention, it carries all the risk. And now if you happen to be on the other side of that, where it's illegal intervention, it guarantees you're going to get all the consequences. And you must be prepared for that. Because if you're not, you're going to bite the bullet of the American justice system.
How many cases have we seen where officers are assaulted, where people start making these threats and start saying things before the threats would come? So all of that stuff doesn't make sense to do to a police officer anyway. If you have a problem with them, document it, call for a supervisor. But getting involved in an altercation with a cop is not a good idea. Media and certain organizations are encouraging people to be aggressive and nasty to law enforcement.
Hill of Justice is sponsored and produced by Jermaine Delmas Studios.
In the next video, everyone watching this will think that they would have handled it better. They would think they step in the right way. But this isn't a story about bad people. In fact, this is a story about how 10 seconds of bad judgment and how fast your life can be split from before and after. So the real question isn't who was right. It's going to be, how do you avoid becoming the next defendant? And so all these platforms tells you to react emotionally. But the law doesn't care about your emotions. It's a trap. I'm telling you right now. You see something you don't like, your body moves before your brain finishes the sentence, and suddenly you're inside a criminal investigation. I'm Jerome Hill, former police officer and state investigator. With me is retired Sheriff Victor Hill. Brother, I want you to take a look at this video, break it down on the other side of this.
Okay. Well, I don't want to get off key, but one thing I've got to note about this, first of all, I'm impressed with that officer and the type of shape he's in. I mean, he runs like he's a $6 million man. And then his agility when the lady tried to trip him was amazing. A lot of people would have probably tripped over a foot and fell and had to get up. But the way he was running, you could tell that he keeps in shape. Let me tell you why that's so important. He's the type of guy that I would want working for me. When you're sending people out there to defend people who can't defend themselves, how can they defend people who can't defend themselves if they can't defend themselves? If that makes sense. So we need officers that have physicality like that. A lot of people want to make it seem like, well, we don't necessarily need tough guys. We need smart guys. They need to be a combination of both. And one without the other doesn't work well in law enforcement. Because you can have a smart guy, but if he can't defend himself, if he can't run after anybody, if he can't shoot, if he can't fight, how can he stop a victim of rape? How can he stop someone from being robbed or somebody from being bullied or whatever like that? So I was very, very impressed with the physicality of that particular officer, and I was impressed with his reflexes and how he was able to avoid being tripped up up. Now, on the other side of that, there's this thing out here that's pervasive where media and certain organizations are encouraging people to be aggressive and nasty to law enforcement. It's as if though, they're being trained to taunt them, to do whatever, and it's supposed to be acceptable. And that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And I don't know if especially when people in leadership do dumb stuff like that and make it seem like it's okay. I don't care whether it's a regular police officer, whether it's a federal officer or whatever. That's not appropriate. And you're putting your life in danger. And you're also endangering their lives and other people's lives because they're in the middle of a confrontation and you don't know what it's about, even though you may not agree with it. You could do something that could cause them to get hurt or possibly the person you think that you're trying to save from getting hurt. Now, I'm not talking about filming it. There's this thing out there about photography is legal or photography is not illegal. And they're right. You can film anybody or anything you want. And I always told my deputies, if someone's filming you, do not tell them, get the camera out my face. Do not do any of that because they can legally do it. I would rather you take your camera out and film them and y'all film each other than to do something like that. But to push, kick, taunt, impede officers, I don't know whoever thought that that was a good idea. It's not. It doesn't make sense. And what you're doing is encouraging people to go after the people who are out there protecting us. And you're also encouraging children to be disrespectful to authority. And none of that is good. Now, is authority always correct? No. But there are other ways to handle that. If you want to film it and then go file a complaint, that's fine. But to do all this other stuff that people think is cool to do and then play victim. And unfortunately, we have leaders, especially prosecutors, that go along with this stuff. And then what they want to do is criminalize the cop and make people like this woman the victim when obviously she's not the victim, she's the perpetrator.
So, what charge do you think she's going to get?
Well, the fact that she tried to trip him up, I mean, at the bare minimum, that's going to be like some type of assault or battery charge. I mean,
And inform the audience what level of that is.
right. Well, the laws are different in different states, but assault, you're not necessarily touching a person. You could get in their personal space to intimidate them or jump towards them or something like that. That's assault. Battery is the actual making contact where you push, you slap, or you do something like that. She made an obvious attempt to trip him up, which was very inappropriate, which should have never been done. And then instantly she tried to turn herself into a victim.
Right, she did. And so usually with those batteries, those simple assaults, they're misdemeanors, right?
Yes.
This was a goddamn felony.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not a felony. First of all, if one of my guys are sprinting from that area, running after something like that, it had better be because there was an urgent need for him to go ahead and sprint that way. If somebody's trying to trip me up,
do we know why he was running away?
That's what I'm trying to say. If he's running like that, there's got to be on the other end of that something that's going to go ahead and make one of my officers run that way that fast. I better not see one of them trying to trip and worried about some lady trying to sweep me, and you jumped over that very easily, and then you go after the lowest lying fruit when there may have been a more serious situation in front of you. If you're doing that type of dead sprint, right?
Let me tell you something. Again, there's this thing out here where we're criminalizing the cop and Monday morning quarterbacking them on everything and making it sound like these people are just innocent victims. I'll let them go. Had she actually tripped him, we've seen what happened from trips.
Yeah,
he could have fell on his face, knocked his teeth out, or whatever like that. That was a very dangerous thing for her to do at the speed he was running. It was completely unnecessary.
Is that a felony?
Well,
Do you agree that's a felony
Let me say,
charge?
let me say this. I don't know if it's a felony. I don't know if it's a felony or not. And let me tell you why. Okay, I point a gun at you, but I don't shoot you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's still aggravated assault
Mm-hmm.
or pointing a pistol at another. That's not a misdemeanor,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I pointed something deadly at you. Okay, so what she did could have had deadly consequences. It was his agility that stopped it. She missed. Now let's get this straight. Okay, if I shoot at you and miss, does it become a misdemeanor because you were fast enough to dodge the bullet?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so what's the problem?
Yeah. Well, what the problem is that this wasn't. That is an intentional act of violence on that end of it, right? If you
What
take a
was what
gun
if you're
and you want
trying to
that,
trip a
so she's
person
trying
on
to sweep.
cement? Right. What was her intentional? That's not an intentional act of violence.
No, 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 no. It is okay, but the level is so many. It's drastically different, right? Now, I get your point, your overall arching point about the fact that hey, guess what? What could have happened, as much as with the pointing of the gun and shooting it. However, however, the reason why we get paid the big bucks, the reason why we go through these type of training, is to go ahead and do these type of somersaults over people, right?
You know good and well the average cop that they're hiring today can't run. Some of them are overweight or whatever. This guy happened to have exceptional physical ability.
Mm-hmm.
The average guy was not going to actually avoid that. So it's it's fortunate for that department that who she decided to do that to happened to be a guy that has some athletic ability. But
Mm-hmm.
if that was the average cop or the average female cop driving up, running down there, they would have got tripped up and possibly injured.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and they could have broke an arm or anything else. So if we're saying because he avoided it, that's like saying, okay, well, he shot at me. Well, he missed. So why'd you shoot back? He didn't hit you. Okay. So when does it become, whatever? If I happen to swing at you 3 or 4 times and I'm trying to knock you out, and you happen to be a trained boxer and you slip and you duck and you weave and you're one of those guys, like I forgot this boxer's name, but he's amazing at that. His defense is so good that he doesn't even have to block. He can slip and weave and everything like that. So you're trying to knock this officer unconscious, but because of his skill level, you missed.
Right,
So we're
right.
going to treat you differently because if you deal with the average officer who's never boxed, who don't know MMA skills or whatever, and he gets his teeth knocked out, like we just had somebody get a tooth knocked out here in Clayton County in a jail. Do we judge it by with the officer's skill level?
I
I
know
don't agree.
judges
I
do.
don't agree on that.
I know judges do because I could tell you plenty of times where I put on the paper that I was assaulted by a suspect, and the judge will be like, that was a love tap, dropped, and the charges are dropped.
Right, but I think
It's happened
but we have
time and time
already,
again.
established that just because a person puts on a black robe doesn't mean they necessarily have good judgment. I think we've
Mhm.
established that, not just with my case, but with a whole lot of other cases. We see judges make crazy rulings all the time. That
Mhm.
does not make 2 plus 2 no longer 4.
Right, right, right. I think that I think what a lot of people have to understand is the officer is already in enforcement mode, and that matters because the enforcement starts. The officers just can't walk away when they're doing that type of operation, and so people think that with crowd influence that the process will stop. And that the officer is going to go ahead with whether the chants, the video recording, that these will stop a process. Your disagreement has zero legal weight. I promise you, it has zero legal weight. This is a lesson basically for civilians to understand. If law enforcement has begun in any type of capacity, your opinion is irrelevant to the outcome. You can be pissed off all you want to. Back up. It won't help you any. Quit getting your emotions involved in this. And this is what happens time and time again. I've seen it countless times. I know you have.
Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing that I think people need to understand. If you disagree, that's fine. You can. There's internal affairs. Everybody has a camera in their phone. Don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with anybody. When I was sheriff filming my deputies, I always told my deputies, instead of arguing, film each other, film them back. 'Cause I'm tired of seeing videos where they're only showing you, and then I don't even get to see what they look like. So instead of arguing with them, y'all can just sit there and photograph each other, and maybe y'all can shake hands and walk off because now y'all both have a picture of each other. But as far as going back and forth with these people, or as far as allowing folks to physically interfere with officers, that makes no sense whatsoever. Now, there's this argument about the verbal stuff, and here's where a lot of people don't understand. There's this new thinking by woke people about freedom of sleep, and most of the people who are woke are actually fast asleep. Here's what people got to understand: there are pre-attack indicators that people show. Body language, the way people start breathing. I'm sure you've been in altercations where all of a sudden, before they attack, they start breathing hard, the 1,000-yard stare, but also the threats. When people start making threats, you need to believe that. How many cases have we seen where officers are assaulted, where people start making these threats and start saying things before the threats would come? So all of that stuff doesn't make sense to do to a police officer anyway. If you have a problem with them, film it, document it, call for a supervisor. But getting involved in an altercation with a cop is not a good idea. And we got to quit, especially our kids in this next generation. We've got to train them that that's not the thing to do. Right now, people act like it's cool. They got these challenges on TikTok. Go antagonize a teacher and see if you can rage bait them. Then when the teacher gets up and do something, okay, good. They can lose their job and they can get fired, because we should be able to do and say anything to them and they shouldn't react. That's crazy as hell. And it's unrealistic. And we're teaching them a lack of respect for the authority of the teacher. It's ridiculous. And that's why the schools are out of control now. Well, the same thing is going on with cops. We're seeing videos where people are shooting water guns at cops, putting, pouring.
Well, that's assault.
Right. Well, and it's supposed to be okay. And well, they're just playing. Well, it doesn't matter. You're held to a higher
Still an
standard.
assault.
And the
Right.
same people who are saying this, the same dummies who are saying this, are standing judgment in these officers. If someone poured water on them, they would probably lose their cool and start swinging and fighting. But you're going to tell this cop that he's going to get fired or go to jail if he does. Well, first of all, you're encouraging these people to do this type of stupidity anyway by setting that type of stuff in motion. And how can you possibly expect these people to protect us, and you just drench their equipment, their taser, their weapons or whatever in water? And to think that's appropriate, and to say, well, just let them just go and dry off, whatever like that. Unfortunately, I think anyone doing anything like that to a cop should face some type of criminal prosecution. It's ridiculous. I don't know who came up with it, and it puts everybody in danger.
This is where people make their first mistake. They think that just standing close and just telling people, I'm just standing close by. This is what really happens. And officers start thinking or feeling potential interference, right? So
Which has happened.
when space collapses, so does the officer's patience. And I've seen that go through the roof like crazy. So the closer you get, the fewer options everyone has. The officer, the citizen. And if you remember nothing else from this, everybody please understand, distance is protection. You want to back up and stay backed up. You could take your camera. You got Zoom. Go ahead and just zoom us in. That's fine. But more to your point about saying and antagonizing, I could care less if they said the N bomb, the MF bomb, and stuff like that, as long as you're saying it from a distance. Because I can react to whatever you got going on if you do that. I don't care about the words. Because trust me, I've worked in urban cities where the words went right back at them. So I'm not concerned about that. But this is what happens. This is where the exact second where the law changes 100%. Because this isn't about protest. This isn't about speech. This was about a physical interference. And what you were getting back, these are risk creations. These are officer endangerment. You can have the officer lose control, as you pointed out, and it can start a snowball effect. What if the officer was seeing something going downfield, and he was about to pull out his weapon and he got tripped? Somebody's going to get hurt. And then he does a sympathetic reflex and shoots somebody unattended. There's so many
That's
things that could have gone wrong.
that's very true. But one thing I've noticed that is done a lot. It's done by the media a lot. And unfortunately, we see the courts doing it too. There's this pervasive thing of we don't care what they did. It's what the officer does. I think we need to start caring about what people did, because there's always something that led up to that. But if
Mm-hmm.
you just show the video where they have the lady up against the wall and she's saying, "Somebody help me," it's easy to say, "Oh my God, why are two men grabbing a woman?" But they don't show where she tried to trip an officer. And then let's say it goes further and she gets even more physical with them and they get more physical with her. Then there's this thing, "Oh my God, I can't believe what they're doing." And then there's this thing, well, it don't matter what she did. It does matter what she did. She tried to hurt an officer, and she could have seriously injured him if she was successful. And it would have been, and you know what? It was a joke then. Hey, I tripped him. He fell. He knocked himself out, and I kept walking. And somebody's like, "Oh, that was funny." And you see people encouraging this stuff. Like I say, I'm surprised at the amount of people that think it's funny to drop a bucket of water or ice on an officer or wet them up with water guns or whatever, and then would have a fit if the officers locked them up. And there would actually be
Oh,
people
well.
out, yeah, and then there would actually be people out there that, "Oh my God, they're just kids playing. I mean, couldn't you just get another water gun or whatever?" That is crazy. These people are out there to protect us. They need to be there. They don't need to be walking around drenched and have to go home and dry off. That's one officer off the road. You're impeding law enforcement at that point, and it's ridiculous. And then another thing, I don't know why people, when they get a response that they don't think is politically correct. I think Dad said it to us a million times. I'll never forget. I'm driving with him. I had the right of way, and he was telling me to yield
Right.
to a tractor trailer. And I was like, "Dad, I got the right of way." And he told me, he said, "Listen, there's a lot of tombstones that
Tombstones,
read,
right.
'Here lies the man who had the right of way.' So it doesn't matter if I got the right of way. Why am I going to take a chance with an 18-wheeler truck?" He was absolutely right. So why
Mhm.
are we out there confronting people with tasers and guns? And then if you get tased, oh my God, you didn't have to tase them. Why were you even antagonizing them or interfering with what they were doing to begin with anyway? There's a whole lot of other things you could have done that day. You could have went and played a video game, go saw your girlfriend, whatever. But to make people think, especially younger people, that this is a good idea and this is the way to go is absolutely asinine.
Yeah, I tell you what, I want to go ahead and when people take a look at this episode, I want them to save them years of regret right now. You do not intervene because you're angry. You don't intervene because you're morally correct. Who cares? You can't go. And to think that the arrest is unfair. Oh, dwell. You want to go ahead and stop what you're saying. It doesn't work like that. You
But
don't
she
fight
wasn't
officers on the street. You
exactly
fight them in court.
right, and she wasn't, and technically she wasn't even intervening because he
Mm-hmm.
was leaving what was going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not intervening. If she didn't agree with what the officers were doing there, which we don't know, I would like to hear the whole story. But this guy is running obviously to something else, and well, I'm gonna trip him just to be nasty.
Now I
And
do I do want to talk about this because this is the craziest part of this whole thing. When the very rare exception to intervene legally. I will preface this because I'm almost scared to say this.
I know,
There are very rare moments, and I just want to point it out. I don't want anybody to take. Of course, they like to go ahead and take an inch and make a mountain out of this. But when there is an immediate threat of serious bodily harm, that doesn't mean you won't get investigated. If that was the case, trust and believe. With your belief, if you believe there was an imminent threat of any type of serious bodily harm, most likely you're going to jail still, even if that was your call. Just understand that, or there was nobody around, some lawful authority wasn't around for you, or you got to understand that action that you take has to be proportional to what was going on. And a lot of people don't have those skill sets. And so this is the part where I just didn't want to go ahead and say it blindly for people so they can go ahead and take it to another level. I mean, you're still getting
Yeah,
investigated, you're still going to jail.
yeah, and I'm trying to think of a scenario where I think just the fact that if an officer is doing something he shouldn't be doing, I think just the fact that you're filming it, unless he's in such a state that he can't think logically or whatever,
Right,
that's
right,
going to be something. And I could,
right.
I would, it's that's hard to even advise. Let me tell you something. There's a clause in the law, and there's a lot of laws out there that exist. But again, it reminds you of what Dad said about here lies a man that had the right of way. There's a part of the law that says that if you're being arrested illegally, that you can resist to the point of death. That sounds good on paper, but that just does not.
Glad you
It's
point that out.
right. It doesn't make sense. Listen, nobody is more familiar with being falsely arrested and convicted than I am. And me fighting them physically and would not make that situation better.
Right, right, right.
Right. So I
So,
mean,
so,
right.
so what I'm talking about and what you're talking about is even justified intervention. It carries all the risk. And now, if you happen to be on the other side of that, where it's illegal intervention, it guarantees you're going to get all the consequences. And you must be prepared for that. Because if you're not, you're going to bite the bullet of the American justice system. You're going to be done.
Right. 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 And then you got to understand that you have prosecutors and judges that are already involved in lawfare. So if you're someone that they're targeting, and it's a made up case anyway that they got a rig in order to push through, they're hoping that you're going to give them something legit that can stick. So if you actually start fighting and arguing and doing all that stuff with the arresting officers, then it gives them a see, this is what we're saying when they actually were lying to begin with. So that's
Mhm.
why even when you saw a situation like what I experienced, where it was a made up case, you didn't see any resistance. You see me fight the system through the system and still fighting. Even though it's an unfair system, and even though they're, something like that, the way to handle it is not for me to go and taunt or physically attack a prosecutor or a
Mhm.
judge. That's not going to solve the situation. It's not going to get you a reversal. It's going to
You
make
know,
the
you know,
situation worse. You,
sure.
you know, exactly. Right.
Here's the thing of what I've seen time and time again. Most of the people that interfered with any of the investigations that I had, or even police actions that I had, most of them were good people, Keith. They were. They just let their emotions outrun their logic. They just, oh my goodness, that's my son. I can remember an arrest warrant. I was making up on top of a staircase. He was up there, tried to tell him a million times to come down, grabbed him. We both were coming down the steps. The families was right there in the living room. They were pissed off, mad. Three of
And
them
that's
had bracelets
understandable.
on them.
But we're talking two different things, though, Jerome. I agree with you totally. If you and I walked in the house and we saw cops manhandling our mother, anyone's going to react to that. That's our mother.
Right.
Right. Okay. That's totally understandable. I'm talking about people going out of their way like this woman. Obviously, that's not her son they were arresting or someone she knew. And people going out of their way to pour water on cops, trip them up, uh, rage bait them, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Two different things.
Well,
We all,
I'm
we
not quite
all,
sure
we're,
if it
oh,
is
yeah,
because it's still emotions. You still got. We don't know. We
Uh,
don't care about the, basically the
okay,
motivation.
not there is a difference because you're talking about a mother love for a son is unconditional. So she's gonna be emotional no matter what, because it's her baby or whatever. So we understand that, and we allot for that when we go on domestic calls. We're trained for that. We already know that the minute we arrest somebody there, even the person that they had the argument with, and they're sometimes the victim. We've seen them turn on us because even though this person just beat them up, they still have an emotional attachment to that person. We understand that. I'm not saying it's right, but to involve yourself in something you have nothing to do with and start rage baiting and tripping up cops and pouring water on them, it has nothing to do with it was an emotional situation dealing with a family member. You're going out there literally trying to create situations with cops to film it or whatever. And that's something that we need to teach, especially our younger generation, not to do. It's dangerous for them, it's dangerous for the cops, it's dangerous for the public. And then when we put the cops under the type of scrutiny that people can trip them, pour water on them, do whatever they want, and it's okay, they're just whatever, then we're weakening law enforcement and we're making them afraid to do their jobs and telling them that once you put on a badge, you become a punching target or you become a water target. And that's just not the case. You're not supposed to throw water and spit on teachers, law enforcement, or whatever. And whoever thought that was a good idea is a dummy.
There's a bunch of dummies out there, and I don't want to
I agree.
conflate.
I
I don't
agree.
want to conflate what you know,
Yeah.
to a mother's pain of seeing her son or daughter being manhandled compared to, some stranger. But the motivations are out there where they feel just as passionate or just as emotional about these matters, whatever flag that they're putting on that hill, and they are going full blast to go ahead and interfere.
And let me add this to it. Let me tell you what the real problem is. Okay, a person does something wrong, they're getting arrested. They don't want to go to jail. So now they know there's this new thing out there. So the first thing they do is what this lady do. Somebody help me or whatever. I'm a victim. Right. Okay. And so they're resisting arrest now. So
Hmm.
once a person tells you they don't want to go to jail, you have to somehow take them in custody. And it's never pretty. A person resisted arrest. What do you do at that point? And then you got a bunch of people screaming and yelling. Okay, so what do you do? Okay, well, I tell you what. They don't want you going to jail. You don't want to go to jail. I'm just going to leave. You don't have to go. So when can they arrest somebody? So they have a warrant for a person. Are they supposed to get somebody? And then this person starts yelling and screaming, somebody help me. Then he gets a bunch of idiots that come in. Hey, leave him alone. And what is the officer supposed to do? Get in the car and drive off? But then if they actually do their job, then they're filmed and it's like, oh my God, look how rough they are with the person. And you're creating a chaotic situation for law enforcement. And what people don't understand is when you create a chaotic situation for law enforcement, you're creating a chaotic situation for yourself. When you start targeting cops and you start making everything they say and do illegal and this and that, you're essentially giving criminals the green light, like they gave the students, where they tell the teachers, well, it's nothing you can do. And you give them complete control. And what people don't think about that create that type of chaos is one day the victim may be your mother, your sister, the same guy that you cut loose because you're fighting for his right to be an ass to the cops or his right to commit a crime and not be arrested. And you're fighting for this guy to have this freedom. And that's the same guy that may well break in the house or may well mug your mother or grandmother. Then you want the cops to do something. But now they're gun shy because when they were trying to handle the situation the first time, everybody was like, "Oh, fire them, throw them in jail."
Yeah.
And then you
Well,
come up with a case. It's kind of like what you see going on in Clayton County right now.
well,
When right,
yeah, I
exactly.
don't have no thoughts about that, but I can tell you the reverse. When officers draw attention to them when they're saying, "Stop hitting me, stop hitting me, stop hitting me," and they're nailing the suspect, and the suspect isn't hitting them at all. So
Yeah,
that
I'm not.
bringing attention could go
Yeah,
back and forth.
it can, and I'm
Shoot,
not
shoot.
saying that officers are right in every situation, but we're talking about this situation here, where a woman
Hmm.
tried to trip an officer. And then there's so much chaos. It's almost this thing of how do we find a way to find something wrong he did? Why? Because
Right.
he's running to handle something.
Yeah,
And then we try to, well, she didn't trip him. She had no business doing it anyway.
I agree with you. I
Right.
mean,
And then
I
if
just
you
don't
let
agree with the
and if
felony
she
charge.
and if she gets away with it,
Mhm.
she feels comfortable doing that the next time. And then it encourages other people, you know what? When we see officers, let's start tripping them up now.
No, I get it. I get it.
Right.
Just the felony
You know,
charge
am
was
I
a
a
bit
fan of
much
the
for me.
felony charge? I don't know. I got mixed emotions about it. Like I said, had she shot at him and missed, it would have been a felony.
Oh,
Had
without a
she,
doubt, right?
okay, if she took a bat and swung it at him and missed, it would have been a felony. Well, she tried to do something to him and she missed. So I'm not so sure that this is a travesty, that it's a felony. I mean, off the top of my head, I might have went with a misdemeanor, but the fact that they went with a felony, I don't know if that's such a horrible thing when you got someone intentionally trying to hurt a cop.
Yeah. Well, we're going to leave it right there. Ran out of runway space on this one. But I just wanted to go ahead and let everyone know thanks from us too. Please comment about the things that we've talked about today. Subscribe, like. We really appreciate everyone just coming into the show and really getting really deep into our community about the things that we're talking about. Brother, that's all we have for today. I appreciate you bringing it today. And until further ado, we'll talk to you later.
Take care, brother.